This KFAN podcast is sponsored by Builders and Remodelers, exclusive Twin Cities provider of Elements Windows. Get the highest quality windows at unmatchable value. Visit buildersandremodelers.com for more details.
Show us your purple preset for a chance to win Vikings draft party tickets. Set KFAN as a preset on the iHeartRadio app. Screenshot it. Post it with hashtag KFAN purple preset to your social media. Make sure to follow and tag KFAN. Winners will be DM'd daily. Get the full rules at KFAN.com. Keyword contests.
All right, Chris Hine is back in studio with us. He covers the Timberwolves for the Star Tribune. His new book will be out soon on Anthony Edwards, called, appropriately enough, Ant. And why don't we just tear the Band-Aid right off? Because I do have a series of texts all under the same theme, which is a book on Ant. He hasn't even won anything yet. What's the hurry? This is another example of how everything's out of control, and we're giving players too many accolades and too much credit too soon. To which you say what?
I say there's a story to tell there, and a publisher came to me essentially, and so when I have a chance to write a book, which is something I've always wanted to do as a writer, I say yes. And I think given his story, and like I said, that's the first half of the book, it's inspirational in a way that moves beyond basketball, and hopefully people get that from that part of the book. And then I think the second half of the book, about his first 4 years here, this is, one of the best times to be a Timberwolves fan, historic time in the franchise's history. And he's one of the main reasons why. And it's an education in how an NBA star gets made, from, the tough times of his rookie season and undergoing a coaching change, and his relationship with Chris Finch, with various, Ricky Rubio, Pat Beverly, to Mike Conley, kind of the ways in which a star matures, learns the game, the factors that all play into this. And before you know it, you have a pretty comprehensive story there. That's, 11 chapters. And then at the end of it, I end the book with his Olympic experience. He's playing next to his childhood hero, Kevin Durant, during the Olympics. And, when you couple that with what he went through, in the first half of his life, it's a pretty inspirational story at the end of the day.
You mentioned Finchy. It's always crucial, quite frankly, how a coach handles a talent like this. There's a million ways to do it. Back off, tough love, combination of both of those things. You're around this team all of the time. So what are your impressions of the approach that you think consciously you believe Finchy has gone with here, and how successful you think that marriage has been?
He's never taken it easy on Ant. When I see Twitter and social media, and I see people say that Finch is maybe not intense enough, I always just shake my head at that, because behind the scenes, he's always not afraid to hold guys accountable, up to and especially Anthony Edwards. And he's always been like that since day one. And as you'll see in the book, this is the kind of coaching Ant has always had in his life. And whether Finch kind of knew that or not, I don't think he did. But from the time Ant was playing youth football, and believe me, those were some hard days for him, growing up playing youth football in Atlanta, and the stuff that they would make him do after practice, and his early AAU coaches, everybody always got on him. He never had it easy coaching-wise. Tom Crean at Georgia as well wasn't afraid to get on Ant. So this is the kind of coaching Ant has thrived under. It's what he's been comfortable with. It's what he knows. It's what he responds to. And Chris Finch has kind of fallen in that lineage from when Ant was 6-7 years old playing football. This is the kind of coaching that Ant likes and respects. And at the end of the day, even for as intense as they may get with each other, and there's one or two examples of that in the book, Naz Reid kind of put it best when I talked to him for it, and he said, always at the end of the day, they're going to be fine. It's just two guys, super competitive, who really respect and like each other at the end of the day. And even when it looks maybe bad in a film session, or they have an intense moment with each other, they always come back together at the end of the day. There's always a respect there,
right.
And that's how it's always kind of been between them.
I'm not going to ask you to give away all the secrets to the book, because you want people to buy the book, which I understand. But can you give us one of those examples of when things got a little tense between the two of them and how that played out.
There was one instance in game once upon a time where Finch was not happy with Ant's shot selection, but Ant was hitting the shots.
That's always a tough one.
So Finch
that could be a lot of games, by the way.
But he hit like maybe 3 in a row, and there was one time where Ant hit like a mid-range fadeaway or something like that. I forget the exact details, but when the shot went up, Finch kind of said something that I can't repeat on the radio here, and Ant makes the shot, and as Ant is walking down the floor, he pats Finch on the butt and just keeps walking down the floor, essentially. So that gives you a little peek into the dynamic there. Is not afraid to say whatever's on their mind, but also at the end of the day, they're going to come back together, and there's that respect is always there.
It's in the excerpt, but for those who've not read it, give us a little bit about the fateful workout and the supposed 5 words that, as far as Ryan Saunders and Gerson Rosas were concerned, changed everything in their search to determine who's going to pick number one.
The 5 words came from AJ Moye, actually, in the workout. It was a former Georgia Mr. Basketball, went to Indiana, and he was in the facility that day.
Was that just coincidence?
Coincidence, yeah, it was coincidence. And this was something I didn't know about before I talked to Justin Holland for the book. And Justin said, I walk into the facility that day, and there's AJ Moye. And Justin and AJ are about the same age or so. Justin grew up watching AJ Moye in Atlanta in his high school. And so next thing you know, he's like, hey, if you have anything to say to Ant during the workout, please say something to him. And there was a moment where the Wolves were trying to break him, and that was essentially what they were trying to do in the workout, because they had heard how bad the Golden State workout went. So they were trying to test him to the limit during their workout. And there was a moment where you could see Ant, it was getting to him. And the 5 words were, hey man, we from Atlanta. We don't break. We don't give up. And those were kind of inspirational words to Ant in that moment. And Justin, kind of explaining to Ant who AJ was. And so that was one of the fun parts of the book, is Justin tells me that story. So I immediately go tracking down AJ, and he's an assistant coach at Valparaiso, and get him on the phone, get his version of events, and that was one of the I knew when I wrote it that this was going to be the excerpt that I used for the Star Tribune, because it was probably the most fun section I had writing, because of how the various stories just kind of came together so well.
So the 4-hour Malibu dinner was the night before?
The night before, yes.
Tell me about that.
So, yeah, they have dinner with him, and so that's when you kind of get to lay it all out on the table, literally and figuratively with him. You can ask him questions about his personal life and, his basketball career, what he knows about the game, dissect film with him, this and that. And, again, the backdrop of this being, you hear all these whispers, you don't know who has influence in his life. So this is the first time the Wolves really get to sit down and get to know Anthony Edwards, the person. And there was a moment that both Gerson and Ryan Saunders pointed to separately from each other that said, at some point during the dinner, it's like, how can we trust you, like, to keep working hard if we make you the number 1 pick? And he gave this answer about, I've been through the worst in life, and I've always, come out on the other side. I've always worked hard. I've always had a smile on my face. And I pledge to you essentially that if you make me the number 1 pick, it's going to be the best decision you ever made, because I know that I can't fail, and I'm going to work hard every day to make sure that I live up to the reputation and the honor, essentially, of being the number 1 pick. And when he gave that little speech in the dinner, that's what hooked the two of them. So they come into the workout the next day, and as long as he did well in the workout, they thought it was a done deal at that point, and he nailed the workout. So
Isaiah Thomas just over the weekend excoriated LeBron James for working out bare-chested, I think 4 hours before a Lakers game. It's a remarkable rant, which we're going to probably play later. I bring it up because there's a bare shirt Anthony Edwards story that also appears in this as an anecdote in the excerpt. Tell us about that.
So he did a bunch of, this was maybe a few days before or a week before, or I forget the time frame, but before they actually met with him in person, he did a whole bunch of Zoom interviews, this being the COVID era, whole bunch of Zoom interviews with the organization, maybe like 5 or 6 or something like that. I forget how many, but there was a break in between the sets of interviews. So during the break, he goes and works out. And he comes back for his next interview, and he just didn't put a shirt on. And he just was shirtless for the Zoom interview. And so the interview goes on essentially as normal, except he's just there shirtless the whole time. And so Gerson was not a part of that interview. So somebody had to inform him what happened, and it brought back flashbacks of something that happened when he was in Houston, to the point that he was angry, he was panicking. He's like, this guy's gonna be the number 1 pick. Why is he showing up shirtless to a Zoom interview? And Ant's former agent said, it never really occurred to me that I would have to remind him to put on a shirt for this. Like, you just think something's go without saying.
Yes.
But that's just what happened. It was Ant just being Ant. And his explanation was, well, I've already done so many. I didn't think it was a big deal. And to them, it was a big deal, obviously. Yeah.
Chris Hine covers the Vikings. Who knows? Maybe someday. Though that might be a curse for you. I'm not sure. The Timberwolves for the Star Tribune. His new book on Ant will be out very soon. We're going to give you some more details on how you can find it, when it will become available. Is it grand in your hand time?
It is. The fan and bigdeck.com. Want to give you a shot to put $1,000 in your hand to win bonus bucks with our national cash contest. You can enter the keyword bills at KFAN.com. That's your shot at winning. Go to KFAN.com and enter the keyword bills.
We'll continue a little bit on the book and a little bit bringing it back to the NBA playoffs that are now set in what's been a remarkable run down the stretch, especially in the Western Conference, with Chris when we return.
Bonus Bucks is back on the Fan. We have 9 chances for you to win $1,000 every weekday, every hour from 9 a.m. till 5 p.m. To enter the keywords and learn more, head to KFAN.com. Bonus Bucks presented by BigDeck.com.
One more segment with Chris Hine. Johnny Athletics is going to join at 5:30 this afternoon. Among his teammates, who do you believe is either closest to Edwards or is most effective at getting through to him to hear what he needs to hear every once in a while?
It's a good question. I think, Jaden and Naz Reid are kind of joined at the hip, so to speak, as kind of this young core moving forward. So probably the closest with them. He's been around the longest. Mike Conley and he have a great relationship, and I think that's been a very underrated aspect of his growth over the last couple of years, is just Mike being able to pull him aside and tell him this, and Ant respects anything that Mike has to say. And there's been, Ricky Rubio was that his rookie year as well. Yeah. Pat Bev a little bit in year 2 for him, but really the last 3 years having Mike there has been huge, and I'm sure you can ask him about that tomorrow when you get him. But that relationship has been huge for Ant. So
the key, I think, one of the most crucial issues for him from a basketball standpoint going forward is to master late game situations. Yep. We were talking about this earlier, maybe it was even off air, and you were reminding us that that's what appears to be the Lakers' edge, right? Any team that has accomplished veteran players who have finished games effectively. And obviously Luka is not afraid to finish games at all. LeBron still, I think, can in certain situations as well. They can play off each other, I think, quite well. Anthony's going to have the ball in his hands a lot. We all know that. How does he thread the needle on figuring that part of it out, and how crucial is it when you're talking about either this year or even going forward for this team?
That's the biggest maturation point at 23 years old that he's still, I don't want to say dealing with, but he's still learning. And I think you go back to that Denver game a few weeks ago, and I thought about this the other day. They had the final shot in regulation, first overtime, and the second overtime. Each That's 3 true. Different instances. Right. Yeah. And Ant gave the ball up all 3 times in that game. I don't know that happens a year ago or even earlier this season, that 3 potential game-winning shots in one game, and he gives it up each time because it was the right play to do.
The right basketball play.
Now, it maybe didn't end up in a great look. One of them, Julius, had a hurried shot, so did Jaden, and then Nikhil, obviously, that was the right call at the end of the game. But I think that moment was a sign of growth to me. Not settling for a hero shot, not trying to fight the double team and try to hit a step back three with two guys in your face. So you see these moments where the right decision pokes through every so often. And I think it happens a little more now than it did, but he still has the urge and the tendency sometimes to take the hero shot. And he's even said as recently as maybe like 2 months ago, I work hard at these shots. I work hard at my shot. I have the right to take these shots. And so he feels that way, and he feels the ultimate confidence in his shot. But I think that was a sneaky moment, that Denver game, where he could have taken the game-winning shot 3 different times, and he didn't. He gave it up each time.
So going into the playoffs now, which start, I guess the play-in stuff starts tomorrow night, Oklahoma City has had a ridiculous season, obviously. There's still, I think, people hesitant to give it to them because of the old, well, they really haven't had a run in the postseason. How do you view them? Do you view them as the team to beat, or are you skeptical to even go that far, despite what you've seen, because they really haven't made it through the meat grinder?
I think more the latter. I think I'll believe it when I see it. And it's such an interesting dichotomy of youth and teams that are on the rise versus the old guard of LeBron and Steph trying for one more run. And with Oklahoma City, are they going to be the buzzsaw of a defense that they were throughout the course of the season against better competition on a nightly basis? And, the non-Shea minutes for them, and who's going to step up when teams try to double Shea and make him give the ball up? And is it Jalen Williams? Is it like Isaiah Joe hitting some threes? Right. Is it Chet? All these factors. Who is that guy? Obviously, Jalen Williams is the front runner for that, but who's going to be hitting those shots? Who's going to be taking those shots in big moments for them? And do you trust those guys? I don't know if I'm all the way there yet, but man, do they look good sometimes. If
you're not there, then who else do you view to say, is it the Clippers? You mentioned the Clippers earlier. Yeah. They're kind of flying under the radar, although now people are talking about them flying under the radar so much they're probably not.
Probably over the radar.
Under the radar. They might be over it. You're exactly right.
Yeah.
So beyond Okie City, who do you look at and say, I wouldn't want to play them?
I think it's kind of flat to me. Like I think it's Oklahoma City in a tier of its own, and I think everybody else is kind of in the mix. I mean, I wouldn't put like if Memphis makes the 8th seed, I'm not going to put Memphis in that mix. I think Houston is almost like Oklahoma City light in a way. They rely on their defense, obviously, but you look around and offensively, it's like who's getting it done late in the game. And I think that's a legitimate question for them. And I don't know that I trust their offense late in games either. But, I don't know about the Warriors. With the Clippers, it's always Kawhi and his health. But at the end of the day, it's like, man, this Lakers team, sometimes it feels like they have an untapped ceiling just because of the talent of the top 2 guys. And whatever they can figure out in the playoffs, can they figure it out?
Yeah.
And with this Wolves team, we've seen them be among the best teams in the league at various times, but it's the consistency of getting there and eliminating those fatal flaws that they have of maybe being too emotional at times or rebounding in key situations and the late game offense. But, you go back to that Phoenix series last year and every game was a blowout. Late game situations didn't play into it.
You're right.
And with a week to prepare, really drill down on an opponent, and the motivation to beat these guys should be there. We know they have trouble with motivation sometimes. That's why when I think about this series, I just don't know which direction it's going to go.
Who usually guards LeBron?
Jaden would guard him sometimes, but I think you're probably going to see, because Luka's there, you're probably going to see, Nas and Julius. It's probably going to be a combo, probably a combo effort, I would imagine, from a little bit of everybody.
We were talking earlier, you're already in the building, but now you have to obviously mess with Reeves. I mean, Reeves has become a big-time scorer, is emerged as well. Not surprising, given how much attention is devoted to the other 2 guys. So that's... everybody looks at the Lakers logically and says, well, they should be horrible defensively, so there should be a million ways you can exploit them. But it doesn't seem like, and I think their defense has come back to the pack a bit analytically, but it doesn't feel like to me, from the Wolves' standpoint, where do you have to make the Lakers pay? Is it on offense or defense, or what do you think?
I think it is on offense. Like, they're going to roll out their lineups regardless. I think on offense, that's why we said Rudy's playing such a big role in this.
Can he be played off the floor?
Perhaps. I don't know. What do they do? Do they double Luka? Do they double LeBron? What do they do with Austin Reeves? Does Ant kind of take the Austin Reeves matchup and try to shut him down? It's going to be an interesting dynamic. And I think just offensively, the smaller lineup, I think Naz has always had success against the Lakers, and I could see that lineup doing some damage. It's just, what's the cost going to be on the other end of the floor? Do they match up well with the smaller Lakers team? Or if you don't have the rim protection of Rudy, can they exploit that? Because if you have, and the rebounding too is going to suffer probably as a result as well in those situations without Rudy on the floor. So I've gone back and forth over 24 hours on this series, and I just always come back to that late game stuff. I really do, because you just know there's going to be some of those close games. Even if the Wolves are up, do they start, 10-point lead? Does it become 5 with 2 minutes left? And at what point, who's getting the bucket? We've seen them run through Julius a little bit in the Memphis game, and even the other day against Utah, where it's like they give the ball to Julius. He tries to play bully ball a little bit, get an easy 2, settle him down a little bit. Can you go to that? If LeBron James is going to be the one that's guarding him in that situation,
which he might well be,
and we know LeBron,
he can
match that physicality.
He can still do that well.
Yeah. So that's one of their options that's worked of late game offense. Is that going to be there?
Is Finchy now, you think, at a point where he's liberated on obligations of who plays? That he's at a point we're past that. I hope we are.
I think so. Yeah, and I think you've seen that with a lot of closing lineups this year. He's not afraid to sit anybody, regardless of paycheck or stature in the league. Rudy is sat at times. Mike Conley is sat at times. So I really do think of that top 8, whatever the best combo of 5 is in the series, matchup-wise, or just how they're rolling that given night, I don't think he's going to be afraid to roll out whatever 5 is the most advantageous, regardless of contract size.
All right, so the folks interested in your new book, Ant, they can pre-order right now everywhere. Is that correct?
Yep. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, you name it. There's a link in the excerpt on my Twitter page, Blue Sky, wherever you find my social media. We want to get that out there, and hopefully fans order it. It'll be out June 3rd. I've told people, listen, just buy. You don't have to read it. Just buy it. That'd be great. Right. Hang it on the shelf next to your Wolves gear or something like that. Your Nas Reed beach towels.
Do we have a lot of pictures? People like pictures.
People like pictures. There are pictures in the book of a young ant. Yep. A lot of people gave me photos. Excellent. So pages of pictures, and hopefully some words that you'll enjoy too.
Best of luck with the book. I appreciate you coming in. I'm sure it's, the excerpt was great. Like I said, you sent me, what do we call it, a PDF?
Yeah.
And I'm so incapable of getting through my own email, the iHeartMedia, that I'll get there, believe me, but I'm looking forward to it. But best of luck. I'm sure it's wonderful.
Appreciate you guys having me on. Thank
Absolutely.
you.
Chris Hine, Star Tribune, beat writer on your Minnesota Timberwolves. Good hour with him. Johnny Athletic will resume some of this discussion in about an hour from now. Bradshaw and Brian, KFAN text line is open with reaction, 64686.
It's the Bumper to Bumper Seal of Approval.
How do we not give today's Bumper to Bumper Seal of Approval to 2 Minnesota Timberwolves not named Anthony Edwards? I believe there were, 8 players? National Basketball Association? Whatever the number was, who played in every game, all 82 this year, we've got 2 of them. Not 1, not 2. Well, actually 2. And in the case of Nickeil Alexander-Walker, It's the second time he has played in every game. In fact, he might have played in all of them last year. And Jaden McDaniels is the other. All 80, think about it. All 82 games. No load management. Now, I get it. You know, you could say they're young, with it, and wow. How about, speaking of with it and wow, one of those players being Chris Paul?
I respect that.
You got to respect that. He's
I saw
40
that.
years old. First time in the history of the league that a player in his 20th year appeared in every game. And remember, the Spurs season got shut down for all intents and purposes when Wembanyama got hurt, right? Or not hurt, but it was dealing with the thrombosis issue.
Yep.
And Chris Paul kept playing. Played in every game. Now, did you see, who was the New York Knickerbocker?
Oh, yeah, who took the foul yesterday?
He came in, played 8 seconds. That was the extent of his 82nd game, and then left again. The name will come to me in a minute. That's morally wrong, isn't it? Isn't it morally wrong? Isn't it worse?
It's a long walk for not really that important of a distinction.
Well, it's for me, it's like, don't bother. Just then say, well, I played in 81. But I honestly think
that was Bridges, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Bridges.
You're going to end up getting more heat doing it this way than if you just didn't even bother to play. It's not like anybody's going to be fooled. They go, oh, he played in all 82. Played in 8 seconds. Or played 8 seconds of game. And look, there was no rational reason for him to play in game 82. I don't think the Knicks had anything at stake at that point. But then you just let it go, don't you? Or, in all honesty, you play 15 minutes.
Right.
Right? You go, I'm not going to play 40. I'm not going to play, Tibbs wants me to play 48. But I'm not going to play that. I'm not going to play 40, but I am going to play 15 to 20 so it looks reasonable. I think if you play, I don't know what the minimum number of games, you play 15 or 20, then I think people would say that's fine. That applies. But we got 2 guys, which is impressive.
And you're right, Nikhil did play all 82 a year ago.
So he's got an Iron Man streak going.
He does. But I also like his reasoning because he's talked about that before. And there was one game where it looked like he was hurt pretty bad. Didn't he get like a knee to the thigh? He had like a contusion and then ended up, and at that point, this is before the Wolves went on their little run, he was like the one consistent guy that was playing well every night.
Yes.
But he also said, I waited like 4 years to play at all. I'm not going out of the lineup voluntarily.
That's it.
It took me forever to just find a role, and that story's been told a million times. It's a great story. But I love that that's how he approached it. I've been trying to get out here forever, and now I have a place where I can play 82. I'm going to play 82.
Bridges has a long, he's in the hundreds of games streak in a row, and I'm sure that's going to be, for the Bridges apologists, the explanation, like, well, I'm not going to lose my streak that way. Is it fair to say that the current NBA record for most consecutive games played will never be touched? That we talk all the time about records that will never be touched.
Probably.
This has to be the NBA one that's never touched, right? 1,192 games, consecutive games played. That, of course, AC Green.
That's right.
Former
It was
Los Angeles
AC Green.
Laker.
Yeah, forever.
That's not going to be touched because most teams are in load management territory these days. The Wolves aren't, to their credit, but I don't think that one's ever going to be. 82 games a season. Well, I don't know if does this include playoffs, I wonder, or just regular season?
Probably. And he was on some good teams.
Yeah, he was. He was on some winning teams.
I'm not going to do the math for how many seasons that was. No,
1,192 divided by 82.
Well, I mean, I could get my calculator and do that. Hang on.
1192 divided by, because there are 82 games in a season. We'll forget playoffs for now.
So 14 and a half years.
That's impressive.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Is it not? Now, some of that might be luck. I'll grant that point, but that's a number that's not going to be touched.
Yeah, it's luck because he never got injured, but it's not always luck with the players now. It's just the doctors told us or the trainers told us, we're wearing these vests that say our productivity levels dropped a little bit. Maybe we need a little extra rest, so we're just going to sit out this game. Like luck, of course, if injury is one thing, but the streak stops itself for a lot of these players because they just decide not to play, especially towards the end of the year now when teams are trying to tank. This was also back then. Teams, not as many teams tried to tank as much.
No.
I know they did.
Well, here's the new wrinkle on tanking, as I think you know. The new wrinkle on tanking, like Philly is an example of it. Philly had to ensure that they were bottom 5, because if they went one notch higher, they were going to lose. They were going to surrender their pick, I think, to Okie City.
Protected
the
picks.
The Thunder still got like 35 number ones over the next 10 years.
Yep.
And so you not only just have we want to give ourselves the best chance of lotto balls. It's, we do these protected picks. And so now our new goal is, as long as we finish bottom 5, we'll be happy. I don't know what the league is going to do about all this, but it's bad. It really, it's another bad look. This system is not working. Every time I look up, was Utah tanking, or do they have legitimate injuries, or is it a combination of both? Because that's also part of the thing. It's hard to even tell. And when the day of the game, you see, here are the 8 players who aren't available. You go, what's going on here?
Right.
In all seriousness.
Yeah.
What's happening to this game? And one of the suggestions I've heard, would something like this work better, where you would have a system in which, regardless of your record, like I heard this, your guy, Frank Isola, had this suggestion. You create a system where you have maybe, how many NBA teams are there? 32?
Mm-hmm.
Whatever the number is, you create 4 8-team pods each year, and then there's almost a lottery before the season that determines within that pod, in other words, top 8 or then 9 to 16 or whatever, where you're gonna pick in the next draft. And then you get, over years, if you're picking at the 1 year in the 4th pod, then you get to pick you're going to get a pick in the 1st pod the next year, which means you're going to get top 8. And you don't worry about whether teams that are good end up with a good pick. You just flat out take all the suspense out, take all the incentive out to try to lose games to the degree you do, and just have that. And I don't know if that works, but I will listen.
Well, it's worth trying everything.
The system that's in place now is hideous.
So there's 30 NBA teams.
30. Okay, it's 32 NFL.
32 NFL, 30 NBA, 6 divisions of 5. What do you think of the way the WNBA does it, where it's like an aggregate of your previous 3 years?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Now, I don't know the sample size enough, and they have fewer teams. It's basically half the number of teams. I know they're expanding, and that number is going to get bigger, but that at least, you can't just tank 1 year to go get Paige Beckers, for example, or go get, Cooper Flagg, this year's presumptive number 1 overall pick. You have to really be bad for a while to have the best possible odds.
That's true.
It can't just be one bad year.
Sadly, I think there may be franchises willing to go tank 3 straight years.
Well, that was the Sixers deal, the process, right? When they were bad forever and had all those high draft picks, and none of it really ever worked.
I just hate it. I just hate this whole, because again, as far as I know, you're still asking people to pay for their tickets, right? You're still asking them to pay. And as I mentioned, Philly, and you could say, well, you can't blame Philly. They can't afford not to get the pick. But it's like, what a bad look for the entire league. It's a horror. It's happening too often. There's too many teams. They're going to have to take a whole new look at it. By the way, speaking of the WNBA, we're already active again before the draft, the Minnesota Lynx, right? So we ended up on Sunday, we dealt our first pick in the draft tonight. The WNBA draft is tonight,
right,
to Chicago, right? It was the 11th overall pick for the Sky's first pick in 2026. And then what did we do with that? We moved it to Washington for a 6-foot point guard, I think, a guard forward, I guess, Carly Samuelson, who I think has decent shooting numbers. Isn't her sister more famous than she is? I know there's a Samuelson sister too. In any case, that's the move we've made. So we have no draft pick tonight. There's no suspense for us tonight. So the betting money is, we didn't love the draft. We think originally we think next year's draft is better, but obviously it was more complicated than that. We needed the asset. So because we didn't keep that pick, we turn around and get another player in Samuelson. My concern is, I mean, I know we pick low, right? I mean, by definition. But my concern is, are we going to get? I mean, we talked about this with the Vikings all the time. You got to bring in some young talent. You got to replenish with young talent a little bit, right? Now, in her mind, in Reeves' mind, I'm sure she said, "Well, we got to the last minute of the last game, and so we're going to keep going for this thing right now." I still had the fantasy that we were going to find a way to be all in on Paige Beckers, but it looks like that dream has died.
There's really no trade package that would be good enough that you could, I think, legally do to get that.
Yeah. Well, I'd go illegal if I had to. I'd tamper. But it may not matter anyway.
Yeah, I don't know.
It may not be anything that works.
It was heartening to see that the commissioner chose not to wear a dress that had the New York skyline on it tonight. I've seen some red carpet stuff.
She did not repeat that.
Just a regular plain outfit. Yeah. No New York skyline while the New York team's playing in the WNBA Finals. So I thought that was big of her. But the problem with the WNBA draft or draft picks in general, Nafisa Collier, the best player, is 28. So she's got a few years left, obviously. Yeah. A lot of the players we're going to hear tonight, these first-round picks, there's still a great chance they're out of the league in like 3 years because there's not a lot of teams. It's hard for rookies, except Paige is going to be fine, obviously. They're very excited to have her in Dallas. Top 4 or 5. But once you kind of get past like 6, 7, 8, 9,
true,
there's not a lot of spots for younger players.
A couple of great players decided to go back. And, even in the men's side, this is becoming obviously less of a slam dunk. I mean, once upon a time, it was, I got to go get the money, even the rookie contract deal. But now, I mean, who's the Duke star? Cooper Kupp?
Cooper Flagg.
Cooper Flagg. He could, if he wanted to, I don't think he's coming back, but if he wanted to come back, they said he'd be making $5, $6, $7 million. So to me, it's easier for him to say, I'm going to come back one more year. He could also, I mean, he's got that lever. Depending on who ends up with the number 1 overall pick, if he hates that franchise, I think he could still go back at that point, couldn't he? I think legally he could.
Yeah.
My point is now it's sometimes, certainly on the men's side, there's a little more incentive to stay.
Yes.
Because of the amount of money that you can get even in your remaining year of college eligibility.
The rumor for Pharrell Payne going to Maryland with his coach from Texas A&M, Buzz Williams, is like $2 million.
2?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
now, Pharrell Payne in any professional league next year is not making $2 million.
No,
right?
He's not.
So guys like that are going to play professionally somewhere at some point, it's a lot of money. And you've got your scholarship, you've got your food, you've got your living, you've got everything covered. It's just gravy on top of everything else. So I think a lot of those fringe pro guys are going to milk it for as long as they can because they're going to make good money.
Sure. I don't blame them.
I think the two-way contract in the NBA that a lot of guys had been doing, like Amir Coffey did that, when he came out. Mm-hmm. I think it's like $575 is the minimum two-way NBA contract. I think a guaranteed one's a little bit more. Right. But these guys that are going to be on a two-way potentially can make more money at whatever big college that they're at.
Do you have, let's go ahead and play before I forget about it, we got Johnny Athletic at 5:30. Zeke, Isaiah Thomas made some news over the weekend. Isaiah appears a lot of times on the NBA TV channel as an analyst, like between games, before games, and some nights they're just doing highlights of the games and they're kind of they're breaking them down game by game. And I'm not sure his partners were ready for this. They showed
they were not
video of LeBron. I was told, and I don't know how accurate this is, that this was literally 4 hours before a Lakers game, warming up, working out in the gym. And I assume it was a home game, but I don't even remember.
Probably, but I don't know
where it was. And whoever was in charge of production for that network, they decided, okay, we're going to play this video of LeBron James, obviously not in uniform. He's got, I want to say sweats on. I'm not sure what he has on the bottom, but he's shirtless. He's got no shirt. And the part I saw, he's just taking shots. He's on the wing taking some shots. Well, Isaiah Thomas noticed, and he did not like it.
Second part of our doubleheader tonight. LeBron James going to play the game like this. Shirts and skins is what they're doing in that.
I just totally 100% object to this. And if I was the GM or coach,
Me too.
I would never let one of my players walk out on the floor looking like this. I mean, we are a professional NBA league. We ain't summer league. We ain't, you know, at the YMCA.
Listen, I think coaches got to go back to suits.
Absolutely.
I just mean.
Absolutely. You know, I just think.
College and pro.
I just think the professionalism in our NBA league has diminished so much. And I look, I like LeBron. I'm a fan of his, so forth and so on. But to walk out on the floor before a game with no shirt on and shoot, I mean, come on, man. Where we at? What we doing? Where we at? Now, if you want to, Adam Silver, if you want to find somebody, find that. Put a fine on that.
I am so torn on this because I so much love what I think Isaiah thinks he's standing for that I want to agree with him. I want to say just it would be nice to have more players care about all aspects of the league and the product the way I think Isaiah does. I really think he does. And he's a throwback to that. He's an older guy now. It's hard to believe. You know, I covered Isaiah Thomas in college. He was in college. I was already out 1 year. And, you know, when he played, he looked like he was 12.
Yeah.
But he's older now. And this, I know, is being spun for a lot of people as, you know, old guy, old head, losing his mind over something not worth getting all worked up over, especially if it was literally 4 hours before the game, where presumably there's nobody in the building, right? Because I'll be honest with you, my assumption is that if Anthony Edwards is working out 4 hours before a game, his shirt's probably off.
Well, we just learned from Chris Hine.
Exactly.
He did a pre-draft interview shirtless.
But I love Isaiah's, and I understand the point Isaiah, I think, is trying to make. And there's a part of me that wishes more players. For him, it is, I think, for guys like Isaiah, it is personal. It's like, now, Isaiah, you could say, is in the extreme, because when he coached, he demanded that his players, like, when they are on the road and they showered, they got to put suits on. I don't think that was the general rule. He had a rule about, apparently, national anthem, no hands in the pockets, no hands in the waistband, attention. He was very old school on a lot of things. But what is your reaction? I mean, do you view this as, come on, Isaiah, there's a million things to get upset about. This just isn't worth it 4 hours before the game? Or what do you make of it?
It's not worth it. It's not worth it. LeBron's 40 years old. He's playing at this level, I think, because of his unbelievable professionalism.
Well, you know why his shirt's off. Exactly. You're exactly right. If any of us looked like, had an upper body like LeBron did at 40, probably we'd be doing everything with our shirt off, right?
Yes, we would.
Yes.
So I don't know if going after the professionalism of LeBron.
Right.
I get the overall point.
Yes.
But LeBron's been doing this a really long time at a really high level, and I don't think you get to that point, the point that he's at, where I think this is the 18th postseason appearance that he's about to have, going for ring 5 or 6.
It's against us, by the way.
Whatever it is, Timberwolves right here for sure on the Timberwolves channel of your iHeartRadio app. We'll see what happens with the Game Time for the Wild and if it'll be on the Fan or not. This one, again, when there's no one in the gym, presumably, he doesn't know the cameras are on. He's just there getting his shots up.
If I buy that.
Well, with LeBron, there's always cameras, but you get the point.
Yes.
This isn't the one, like, now we've lost it.
Yes.
We've lost control of the league. LeBron topless. What's next?
What's next?
I don't think that's the hill I would die on. And he just hijacked the segment, too.
He did.
Like, they're just doing a little bump shot like we do in TV, and the guy, Jalen Rose, was one of the guys at the desk. I don't know who the other guys. I'm sure he's thinking, like, what are we doing, Isaiah?
Well, like you said, I think you've captured it pretty well, I think, because you could say this isn't the hill worth dying on. But I have to admit, I kind of like that he wants to die, that he's passionate enough that he's going to die on any hill.
He loves the game. He loves the league.
He does love the game, and that man's appreciation for, and look, Isaiah, there was some baggage with Isaiah, all the nonsense with Michael, right? But that guy was maybe one of the most underrated basketball players ever because no one talks about him when you talk about all-time great guards. Isaiah Thomas was absurd, and he was also absurd as a college player. But I'm probably playing it both ways because I don't disagree with you. Especially as I said, for me, it's like, well, was this like during warmups? No, it's like if the game time is 7, this is like 2:30, and you say, well, come on. I mean, then there's a lot of things that I've seen in the arena
for sure.
If you get there at like 2:00, people aren't dressed. I don't think it's that big a deal. But I almost still want to give him a kiss on the cheek because I just like that level of passion that I do think Isaiah has. I think he's always been protective, I think, of every aspect of the game.
And it's part of the reason why we like the TNT crew because they aren't afraid to go after the sacred cows.
Absolutely.
And that does, especially in this day and age, it's rarer and rarer when everybody is in celebratory mode.
Yes.
Like if you watched the Golf Channel the last 12 hours, which I did because I've been crying since Rory hit the putt, right?
Yeah, you couldn't handle it.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
But even me, at one point, I was like, does everybody need to be referred to as the great or the legend or like everybody we're bringing out? That's why, rest in peace, John Feinstein. That's part of the reason why he was asked to no longer work at the Golf Channel which the story he told all the time is like he wasn't going to deify everybody or everything every single moment. Every once in a while, it's a complete meltdown, and we got to talk about it. It would be great to have Feinstein on today. That was the second guy that I thought of, knowing his affinity for Rory. But even me yesterday was like, all right, we need to chill a little bit. Like, we don't have to preface every question to Jack Nicklaus with, you're the greatest of all time. You know what Rory was going through. You know about the career Grand Slam. You are the best. Tell us how you're the best. And also a little bit of Rory. That's so rare now in these mediums and these platforms that I do get your point about it's fun when someone doesn't just play along.
Yeah, right.
And go, hey, we got topless LeBron here.
I don't care what I'm supposed to do in the script.
I'm mad about this, and I'm going to let it go, even if I don't understand why he's so mad about it. I don't think the NBA is in trouble because of it.
Right.
But it's good content all around.
Larry Mondello guy checks in. What would be truly unprofessional and perhaps offensive would be Luka warming up.
Oh, boy.
Without a shirt. Well, that's the bit. That should be the bit. Luka should come out without a shirt.
I'm not giving Luka any bulletin board material this week.
Who in the NBA has what would be described, I guess the cliche is used is dad bod. Who would have the worst dad bod among NBA players? Would it be, what about Joker?
Joker's my next one.
Joker would have to be it. Joker without a shirt would be interesting.
Yes.
But I actually think if Joker did it, it would add to his legend.
Yes, it would.
Because people would go, how is this guy with that body the best player in basketball by far?
They'd actually say, why is Brett Bielema taking shots at Ball Arena?
That's what
they would say.
Top 5?
We've got the Wolves, we've got the Twins, and a Masters roar for the ages, Dan.